This lesson covers the installation of the Remote Access Service. This is just a role that is part of Windows Server 2012. It actually contains both the virtual private network and the direct access technology. Now, for a complete remote access service, you need the VPN server, but you also require that source for the authentication. So for example, Active Directory. I'm going to need to give out IP addresses, so I'm going to want a dynamic host configuration protocol, a DHCP server available to me. And I may even want to use more advanced policies. Now I need a Windows Server 2012 box, and it's typically going to have at least two different interfaces, i.e. network cards. One of them is going to be facing the outside world, so the internet, and the other one will be connected to the internal intranet. This could be in the DMZ, this could be behind some other type of service publishing gateway, but essentially it's providing a link between the outside world and your internal network. So this means it needs to be highly secured, audited very thoroughly, kept patched, and again, look at maybe putting another server in front of this remote access server, such as a user access gateway, which is part of the Forefront technology stack. It does a great job of really offering a more secure service. But I'm going to have a server, and on this I have two network adapters. So one is connected to my internal network, and in my lab environment, this is just connected to a limited network. It has no connectivity other than to what my VPN client is going to be. I'm then going to install the remote access role. And the great thing is, in Windows Server 2012, it's a completely different experience than what we saw in the past, especially related to direct access, which we're going to cover in the next module. So notice the name has changed. It used to be routing and remote access. Well, now it's just called remote access. It's going to add the management tools for me. It's going to configure some IIS, and it's going to use the Windows internal database. So I'm going to say yes to all of this. It's telling me it's the combination of direct access and routing and remote access services VPN. So it's now centralized in how I manage this. I don't want the routing component right now. Like I say, this can act as a router between maybe different subnets, different networks. I just want to offer direct access and VPN connectivity. I'm going to just accept all these defaults, restart if required, and install. Notice I could have exported these configuration settings like all things, so I could always do an offline configuration of this in the future. So I'm going to let this complete. So this server is now rebooted, and I fired up an MMC interface. Now I have a public key infrastructure environment in my domain. I need to request a certificate for both my server and all my clients, as I may want to use that in my setup later on. So I fired up the MMC. I said add remove snapping, certificates, I added it, and I selected computer account, which is now what I'm looking at. And I'm just going to say I want to actually, all tasks, request a new certificate. I'm using my Active Directory enrollment policy. I want one for my computer, and I'm going to say enroll. So I now have a certificate for my computer. And likewise, I would repeat this on my client machine. So I just say all tasks, request new certificate from my Active Directory, computer, and enroll. So now they've both got certificates. So I can now continue with the configuration. In Start, you now see I have routing and remote access and remote access management. So I'm going to go to remote access management. And the next step is to go ahead and configure, which we're going to do in the next lesson. This completes the lesson on installing remote access services.